Yeah.
What's this? YouTube. Live stream.
You know, it really depends, and so
One person's watching. Thank you.
No, it's not me.
Man, they just randomly click on things. Hello. Oh,
Yeah, go. That's all right. It'll happen. It usually takes 2 or 3 minutes to get like a little crowd going. So somebody, whoever it was, they jumped on, gave us 1 like, and then left. So we'll take it. That's 4 people on now. Hey, who is this? It is live chat. None of your business. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for jumping on here. I know there's only 4 people on right now, but we wanted to celebrate the fact that we're just about to cross the 36,000 subscriber finish line, which is pretty cool because at the beginning of March we were at 33,000. So we picked up 3,000 subscribers in a short period of time. I'm Maynard Edwards, 33rd degree. That is Chris Ruley, KCCH. And this is Brother Daniel Robinson, 33rd degree. Yeah, come on. And we are actually all in. Hey, Berkey, how you doing, buddy? We are actually all in Kansas City. We've been on the road. 2 weeks ago, we were in Salt Lake City for a conference. This week, we are in Kansas City for a Scottish Rite conference. And in 2 weeks, we will be in an undisclosed location in Jacksonville, Florida. And with another conference, and it's been a lot of fun. Chris did a really great presentation last night. Daniel did a really great presentation today. It was a lot of fun, and we just wanted to jump on and say thank you. And if we get lucky, we might get to 36,000 while we're watching. But we'll definitely cross the finish line sometime in the next couple of hours, even if we don't do it right now. So if you got a question, you got a comment. Now, Daniel, this is your first time on the channel. Daniel is the personal representative in the Valley of Montgomery, Alabama. So, if you get a little closer, just so people hear you, I don't think everybody knows what a personal representative does. So, what does a personal representative do? Now, today you are doing push-ups, but that's because you're
all personal reps usually don't do that.
Yeah, no. So, what does a personal representative do?
The personal representative represents the deputy or the sovereign grand inspector general for the Supreme Council. And the thing, according to the statutes, they are, quote, the eyes and ears of the deputy and or SGIG in that orient. And so they serve as the personal rep for that valley. I hate to say like a worshipful master, but they're more or less in charge of an individual valley. And so they serve the pleasure of the deputy or SGIG and report back to them of all the good, the bad, the happy, and the sad. So, in essence, that's what personal reps do.
So, for those of you who are not as familiar with Scottish Rite lingo, an Orient you can kind of consider a state jurisdiction, and then a valley would be a local chapter, and then the southern jurisdiction is all the states and Orients, if you will, in our jurisdiction. And so that means that you're kind of the manager of the local valley. If you're in a real small state where your SGIG can get everywhere, this isn't. It's still an important job, but the SGIG or the deputy who is in charge of that Orient might be able to get everywhere. But in a large state like Alabama, you got to have somebody that's there all the time because the SGIG can't be there all the time.
We got a brother welcoming us from London.
Awesome. Well. And 2 from the Puerto Rico Mayaguez Valley. So Mayaguez is the local valley there, and Puerto Rico would be the Orient because it's the states and then 4 territories. So it's 39 Orients altogether, which we learned last night in your presentation. So
39 Orients and territories. So 35 states and 4 territories.
And we got
Go ahead.
brother checking in from Tennessee. And
Gary Neal in the chat said that Kansas City, birthplace of D-Malay.
it is indeed the birthplace of D-Malay, and also not the birthplace of Brother Harry S. Truman, but he spent a lot of time here. In fact,
Yeah.
the hotel we're in, he spent a lot of time here as well. So if you got some random internet Masonic question, please feel free to ask. We got a lot of guys from jumping in from, there's the Human Cow Valley in Puerto Rico. I know I've said that wrong, I always do, and I apologize. It's just that I'm terrible at Spanish. I can barely manage English, so please forgive me. I'm Butter Rough Ashler. If you got a question, we'll hang out for just a couple minutes. We got 36 people on. Please do give us that thumbs up because it does help get more people to see it. And Knoxville Valley, and so I'm Dr. Gaming. Good to see you, man. We just watched somebody subscribe live out there, and it's weird if you watch it too much. It'll make you crazy because it goes up and down a little bit, and that'll always make you a little. So, James Bong, good to see you there. What has been your favorite part of traveling at this point? Because you go around and present a lot.
Yeah.
You were in Harrisburg on Thursday, and then you flew here Friday, so you do this a lot.
Yeah.
What was your favorite part so far of doing these kinds of things?
Personally, for me, it's just meeting people. This was my second time getting a chance to meet Daniel. It's awesome. I never had a chance to meet him before in the past. Got a chance to hang out with him in 2 states so far. Looking forward to Florida and learning more about people, learning more about what they do across the jurisdiction. I don't think I ever even met a PR since or at least until I started the conferences, because the Valley of DC does not have PRs at all. Because we're one valley, and so we have just the 4 bodies. So that, I mean, we probably asked Glenn if we can have a PR, and he said, "No, you're talking about this.
No.
12 of us here." So he said no.
No. Brother Harry Huff just wrote in that he is about to get his Master Mason degree next week. So
Nice.
Congratulations, man. So
to you.
Yeah.
enjoy that, and hopefully you can come be a part of the Scottish Rite once you go through all the things you need to after you become a Master Mason.
Did Harry say where he's getting?
He did. Harry, if you don't mind, jump back on and tell us where you're getting your Master Mason at. Shout out your lodge. Now, Daniel, I know you do a lot in education and things like that, but is this the first time you've traveled to do stuff Scottish Rite-wise, outside your own Orient, I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first time. It was only by sheer luck because last year in
It
DC.
wasn't luck. I threw you under the bus.
Yeah, but to answer your question, yes, this is the first time I've traveled outside of Orient to do anything
Nice.
presentation-wise for the Scottish.
You knocked it out of the park. You knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, you're
Great
fantastic.
presentation.
Thanks so much.
Brother Richard Glass says he's getting his Master Mason next month. Don't forget to shout out your lodge, guys.
Can they hear us?
They can hear us. Yeah.
Okay, good.
So they're, which
Daniel,
is
you had someone on the chat you may know said that you had an interesting. What does the term Alpha and Omega mean to you? Alpha and Omega tattoo? Is there?
Oh,
anything-
who said that?
The internet. The internet does not lie.
Uh-oh.
Someone posted on that?
That's
oh
right.
My God.
So
You
tell
wanna
us about the,
comment on that?
Yeah,
the
so-
Alpha and Omega. So you have an Alpha and Omega tattoo?
I used to. I covered them up.
Go ahead. You know.
Dude, the Illuminati's real.
They're Jesus, don't say that.
And we're at a conference. Yes.
So I used to have, well, I guess I technically still do have Alpha and Omega
Nice.
tattoos, but I had them actually covered years ago.
Sure.
And so that was, I can only imagine who would say that. Did it have what's the handle on
Noya business? Oh,
None your
None
business.
Excuse me. None your business.
it?
It
Well,
was,
How'd you know that?
Berkey Bender, I think I should have.
oh, Berkey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Berkey. We're members of the same lodge. Yeah,
Yeah.
shout out to Berkey.
A couple guys here are Prince Hall.
Excellent, my Prince Hall brothers. Good to-
Prince Hall brothers.
Yes, and there's a brother that asked in one other video. He asked in the comments. He asked a fairly complicated Masonic Prince Hall question. I'm not ignoring it. I'm trying to find the right answer. It wasn't one I had off the top of my head, but I hate the way YouTube does this. I can't really.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
It won't stay.
I'm trying to work through the chats for us.
Yeah. Thank you.
If you're on the chat, please let us know where you're hailing from or where you're shouting out to. We got one from Ontario, Canada. So we're certainly international.
But do you have Masonic ink or just other ink?
Other, I don't have actually anything
No,
on it.
I got this one that I've had for a while, and then I've got this one, Griffin and I don't know if you can see it, moving the thing. and it's going to be reversed. It's Fiat Lux, which is Let There Be Light. And my son and I have that matching tattoo on that part of our arm.
Very good.
His mother was thrilled. Shout out Round Hill Lodge 533. And did I see Brother Hank? Did I see Brother Hank on there?
He did. He is celebrating, or hey, let's see. Oh, sorry.
You've been Hank. Brother Hank from Maryland, who is our grand chaplain, a dear friend. Brother Hank, we'll catch up, but we've been playing phone tag, he and I, for the last couple days. We'll talk again soon, brother. So what has been the most interesting part of this for you? Because it's been a lot of fun, and you have done a great job with your presentation. He's talking about our Master Craftsman program and about how Masonic education helps, improve a guy, but also make them more connected to the fraternity, for lack of a better word. You had some real specific strategies and ideas, which I loved. Can you talk a little bit about that?
The favorite part, honestly, for me, kind of what Brother Chris said, is networking, meeting all the brothers from around the southern jurisdiction and beyond, actually, brothers I would have never known otherwise. But to answer your question, Maynard, it's being in the field of education, it's interesting to marry the two in the Scottish Rite, and really, I hate to say train the trainer, but in the sense of education is such a hot topic, and it's almost like low-hanging fruit sometimes in Masonry. More education, but we don't really know what to do.
Yeah.
Instead of like, just pick up this book and read it, and that's not always the best strategy, as I talked about earlier. So, just talking about preferences and learning, and then how you can combine that with the Master Craftsman Online College, the MCOC, which is super easy to subscribe to or sign up, mastercraftsmancollege.org. It's more light, and further light in Masonry. It's such a fantastic resource for everybody, and not just Scottish Rite Masons, because there's one that's free to all Master Masons, and it's so easy to enroll. So that's been my favorite part.
We had a question on the chat here. I believe it's the same brother who may know you, Daniel. The question was, can you tell us a little bit more about how your lodge has evolved through education? We now have, that word to me is agape, which is Greek, but agape and brothers writing research essays. Can you tell us more about that?
And that was from Berkey.
I believe so.
Yeah, so Berkey, shout out to Berkey. He's a member down in Alabama. So our lodge has gone through an interesting transition, and I've talked about this today with some of the traditional aspects of Masonry. Not traditional.
What is traditional? No.
Yeah.
Let's not go into that. Let's not dive into that.
People know what observant, or TO as they call it sometimes.
Yes,
People know what we're saying. And so, to answer your question, Berkey, our lodge has seen a trend in terms of, we used to do the eat, meet, and retreat.
Nice.
I love that. I not heard that.
Y'all never heard that?
No.
Never heard that.
Well, that was the thing in that specific lodge, and then I can't take credit for any of this, but we had a brother just come out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He was super hungry for it, what this observant kind of Masonry.
Take a
So
screenshot of that.
he started writing educational papers. Brother Drew Hill, so he's actually not a Scottish. He's joining the Scottish Rite in May, so he's one of the driving factors in our lodge. That's like, look, I'm tired of this.
Yeah.
And so he told our master, I'm doing education essentially whether you like it or not. And so Berkey, that's what we've seen at Twin City Lodge number 76 in Opelika, Alabama. The transition from not really doing much of anything into even having our own observant lodge meetings. And it's super beneficial, and today I talked about that.
Very
So, I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that we get a little bit, I don't know, maybe lazy is the right word, maybe not. I don't think it's intentionally lazy. I don't think but people say, well, what did you come to Masonry for? Well, I wanted more light. I wanted light in Masonry. That's such a generic statement. It doesn't really mean anything.
And it doesn't answer the question.
It does not. And so because you ask 10 different people what is light in Masonry, you're going to come up with 10 different answers. It's like the word karate. Well, do you mean taekwondo? Do you mean, kung fu? Do you mean wushu? What does it you mean specifically? And I think that when we talk about light in Masonry, that Masonic education, that how do these lessons of philosophy and morality and history how can we use those to shape ourselves today? By the way, we are one away from 36,000.
We have one brother here who just was raised in Greenville, 143 Greenville, Ohio. Congratulations!
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Yes, congratulations.
Well, here we go. Do you believe modern science is an inhibitor to the exploration of the more esoteric sciences
No.
through the several liberal arts and sciences?
Modern science is, by principle, by definition, not a hindrance.
No, I think I'm not quite 100% sure I understand the question that you're asking, but do studies of physics or other things distract us from exploring deeper the meanings
Not at all.
of?
Not at all.
I think that's the question.
Modern science helps us try to figure out how the natural world works. Esoteric studies help us try to find ways of understanding things we cannot understand. Perhaps in the future, through modern science, we'll try to answer those questions. But until then, esotericism helps us sort of account for that, just like faith and just like religion.
Brother Louise says, great to see you guys in Salt Lake City. That was a lot of fun. We were glad we got to be there. I'd never been to Salt Lake City. What a beautiful city. Kansas City's beautiful as well. And I have to say, the folks in Salt Lake City and the folks in Kansas City that are local to here, just tremendously helpful. And thank you to all of you. Here's a question. Are there updated videos for the intro into Scottish Rite and new initiates available? Not yet, but we're actually working on a new course in the Master Craftsman online college called the Ivory Key that will be specifically for brand new Scottish Rite Masons. Is there a horde of people?
Yeah. No, I think we're good.
Right.
So you should probably tell them what we're doing here.
Yeah, we are like hiding down this long hallway, and there's like this hotel is crazy busy. There's like a volleyball
There are
tournament.
3 weddings. Yeah, there are 3 weddings. There's a Alpha Sigma Alpha sorority fraternity meeting here. There's the
Volleyball tournaments. They follow us everywhere.
And
This is the 4th time we've done a conference where there has been volleyball tournaments happening at the same time. And like there's volleyball kids everywhere. And it's like there's like 1,000 people. Brother Luke says, thanks for starting this channel to show Freemasonry positive light and to the bombarded by the ignorant conspiracy theories. The reason we started this channel really it was almost accidental. We got permission from Dan Brown, the author, the guy who wrote The Lost Symbol, when they were getting ready to do that TV show, The Lost Symbol. We got permission to use some clips and things from him and from the production team because they were figuring we could do some sort of behind the scenes type of stuff. And then COVID happened, so we didn't get to work directly with them. They filmed it all in Vancouver, but we still got to use clips of the show and things. And Chris reached out at that time. I didn't know Chris at the time. He reached out and said, hey, let's do something, unaware that we were already working on it, and we just sort of teamed up, and you've been here since the beginning, and we really thought it would be for non-Masons to learn more about the craft, but then we realized there was a need for Masons to get into this. Brother Ken says, glad to hang out with you guys. You as well, Brother Ken. We've had a lot of fun. I've learned a lot too. I mean, some of the stuff that we've come away with has been pretty incredible, and some of the ideas that, I do this thing about, one of the questions that I get asked a lot, I know Chris gets a lot, is that, how do you come up with ideas for things? And I kind of talked about the process of that, and in the middle of that, we sort of had everybody do it themselves. And I have a ton of ideas now to steal from them. I will absolutely steal.
And that was the session that you did today during the conference.
Yeah, and that was what I did. So, again, we're only going to stay on for another couple minutes, but if you've got other questions, let me, and as someone who's delved into education, and while there are Masons on here, do you see a correlation between people who are interested in higher education and being connected to a fraternity? Are there more people? What's the right way to ask this question? And I think this is something that you're looking at. So, people who have college degrees or advanced degrees, are they more likely or less likely to be interested in something like Freemasonry?
Good question, because I'm looking at that. I'm currently doing a dissertation study for those of you that are going to be enrolled or will enroll in the MCOC or the Master Craftsman here in the next few months or so. I'm looking at a few variables, one of which is exactly Brother Maynard just asked. Does higher educational attainment correlate with a higher involvement in the Master Craftsman Online College? You would think that there is a correlation. So the higher the educational attainment, the higher the completion rates. But that's what I'm looking at. And also, I'm looking at the length of time in the Scottish Rite, and also the age in terms of completion rates with one course or even one module in the Scottish Rite Master Craftsman Online College. So I don't have the answers yet. I have a hypothesis, but hopefully later this fall, later this year, we'll find out some definitive answers.
Nice.
And then from there, I'm going to give all this over to the Supreme Council, and they will be able to improve the MCOC hopefully, and kind of cater it to all audiences.
Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to find out what that connection is. Like I think we should do a TED Talk on it. Something.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Right, exactly. Here's a good question: which would you pick, Shriners or Grotto? And I'll take a bigger swipe at that. What appendant body would you join? And you could choose your own adventure, because there are lots of them. Shriners is obviously one of the largest ones. Grotto is not quite as large, but it's not in every place in the country, so you might not have the option. But what I'll tell you is, if it's interesting to you, if it does something for you, go check it out. I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. It's going to be up to the individual person.
Yeah.
Some people love Shrine, and I'm a Shriner. I love and shout out to all my Boomy Shrine brothers. I love being a Shrine Mason. But there's some people who don't love it as much and are interested in other things. So do what is right for you. And I know there are a lot of people who say, oh, you shouldn't join an appendant body until after you've been a worshipful master. Or that's sort of old advice, and I do understand what they mean by that. At the same time, I think you have to do what's going to keep you engaged and interested. So now you think a little differently.
See, what's funny? So Brent Morris was doing some research on this, and what he found, now this was about 5 or 6 years ago, but I still think the data is relevant.
I know what you're doing. I think you're right too.
It's about within 5 years of membership, if you join other organizations, those brothers tend to stay and remain active in their Blue Lodge than individuals who became Masons and just left.
So any appendant.
Right. You are more likely to remain and be a dues-paying member if you go to a third or a separate appendant body, and then return and stay and participate in your lodge in some capacity, than those who stay in their Blue Lodge, let's say after 5 years, and decide to commit.
Now, did he say anything about being an officer or just paying your dues?
No, because we didn't have any. We weren't able to account for appendant body membership because it was Blue Lodge data.
Brother Harry is the one who's getting raised in a couple of days. After he gets his third degree, he says he wants to go through the chairs and join the Scottish Rite. And he's Farmington Lodge 265 in North Carolina. Here's a really good question. In your experience through the craft, have you found enough experienced brothers who can guide the other brothers who are knocking at the door for deeper knowledge beyond the standard running of the organization? So are there men in individual lodges who have a deep enough knowledge of Freemasonry to be instructive to other brothers? Have you found that?
Yes, but it depends on the time frame. It depends on the lodge. Lodges, I think we talked about this. Lodges change. They evolve. They're like a living organism. In 5 years, the officer line changes dramatically, and sometimes the things that they want to do are different, or the values, the principles that they have are slightly different. So to me, if you're not getting what you want in that craft lodge, consider looking either at another craft, visiting another lodge, or visiting an appendant body, looking at the York Rite, looking at the Scottish Rite, seeing if you can get that. If that information, the ritual, the stuff that you learn is something that you're drawn to, stick with that. If you go back to your Blue Lodge in 3 or 4 years and see that things have changed and there's an interest and a focus, but that might be a good thing. The thing you gotta remember is, you gotta talk to the worship master, you gotta talk to the guys in the room, you gotta talk to the secretary, communicate, because in other times, some of these issues come from no communication or lack of communication. So be clear what you want. Be clear in terms of what your interests are, and perhaps the secretary that works for master or officers can guide you in the direction.
Daniel, same question. Have you encountered, do you think that there are enough informed brothers to give men what they want when they come looking for that more light Masonry?
So no, I'm just going to be transparent, and I'll say that because, well, being in higher education, it's, if we want to dissect what, a knowledgeable Mason is, like, do you know the catechism? Okay, sure. Are you knowledgeable? Yeah, sure. Do you know about the Scottish Rite? Sure. Have you joined it? Yeah, I've gotten all the 29 degrees. I'm a 32nd degree Mason.
Right.
So am I knowledgeable? Yeah, sure. So if we want to define it, it is what it is. But I think, well, let me backstep. I think it's a yes and no. Yes, because there are those who are what we want to say active and engaged, and again, we can describe what that is.
Right.
But there are those who are not as informed, that what Brother Chris just mentioned can refer you hopefully to someone who knows more. But this YouTube channel actually is such a fantastic resource because of all the information that can be passed on. I mean, you can be sitting on the toilet, honestly, and be watching this live stream.
There's 511 videos, right, or something?
509, I think, as of today.
Right, and so in every lodge, I've said this before, every lodge has its own identity.
Right.
I'm a member of two. One is more rural, one's in a city, and what works for one doesn't work for the other. And finding the, quote, knowledgeable Masons or even the mentors may not be the same in both lodges. But using social media and using YouTube and all the resources of the Supreme Council and even the Grand Encampment, for instance, all those fantastic resources, it's going to benefit every Mason, whether you're Scottish Rite, York Rite, Grotto, Shrine, whatever. But I know in my experience, I've seen a lot of men who they identify with someone like, oh man, I just got to hear that brother speak.
Yeah.
I went to a Scottish Rite conference. Oh my gosh, Maynard's presentation was so great. Anything and everything I could do to watch the videos. Or I got Brother Chris's book, and I just can't get enough of it. So you may have that mentor without actually speaking to that man.
Yeah, I'm a believer in that. If that's what you want out of your lodge experience, you have to kind of be the change you want to see in your lodge. So never, for Masons out there, we all know this, and I know I'm going to answer a question about how to connect with a lodge for a guy who's not a Mason in a second. The very first lesson you learn in Masonry is that you have to knock on the door. You have to take the initiative. You have to take the first step. And yes, that's scary, and yes, that's challenging, and yes, that can be like, well, how do I start? But, take a single step, and you might make a few steps in the wrong direction. That's okay. You can course correct. But, if you want your lodge to have more lodge education, then step up and take that on, because Brother Bob Weatherford says this very bluntly, and I think he says it on the video here. Did you become a Mason for what you could get or what you can give? So if you want there to be lodge education, then find a way to be one of the people that gives that to others. And I know that's like, I don't know, it sounds almost like victim blaming. I came here for this and I'm not getting it. Well, go get it and then give it to others. So real quick, I know Chris has something, but before we get, go ahead.
Well, so, Dan, were you a fellow? So there was a question on the chat about, well, it wasn't a question, it was a statement, but it brought up something that people might not necessarily know. Fellows program. What are the fellows? They're happening, I think there's a meeting in August. Yeah, so tell us more about
The Grand Commander's Fellows Program, more information can be found on it, ScottishRite.org. I forgot the actual drop down, but the Grand Commander's Fellows Program, what it is, where the SGIGs or deputy in your Orient will identify up and coming Scottish Rite Masons. Now, there are certain criteria that have to be met in every Orient, but generally it's for the new up and coming potential leader or current leader that's identified by that SGI or deputy to interact all around the southern jurisdiction with other up and coming fellows, as they're called, appointed single-handedly by the Sovereign Grand Commander. They go to these conferences, for instance, but they also have one-on-one conversations with other fellows and including the Sovereign Grand Commander. And then in August, they will get to go to DC. They have a fellows retreat. They'll get to do some really, really cool and interactive stuff with the Supreme Council, all the members of the Scottish Rite team, the council, and it's just a way of molding the new future of Scottish Rite leaders. Even if you're not going to be a leader, it's a way to get those Masons engaged and involved and shape them to be the kind of Mason that, what you just mentioned, Brother Mayor, be the change you want to see, be the example, so to speak. I was a fellow in 2020. It was kind of a different year. It was the COVID year. So everything was on Zoom.
Did you get a chance to?
No.
Okay.
You're
going in August.
No. Actually, yeah. I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But, it's a great program. If you don't know enough or anything about it, you can find all the information on the Scottish Rite website. Even ask your PR. And if the PR doesn't know, reach out to one of us, Brother Maynard, Brother Chris. Someone will tell you what you need to know. I can't tell you that the Grand Commander is going to pick you,
Right.
because it only happens every 2 years. But it's just a really good way to network and meet people. And for me, it was worth its weight in gold.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's not brother. Travis T asked about should I just go and knock on a lodge door? Or, don't go to the lodge door just randomly, and don't just call randomly. Lodges are a lot like churches, unless they're very big and very active. Generally, there's only somebody there, like right before or during meetings and things like that. So find out when the lodge. My advice is always this, and if you have other advice, I'm happy to hear it. But find out when the lodge meets, and then go there about a half hour early, and there will be people getting ready for a meeting. They won't invite you in, but you'll be able to introduce yourself and say, hey, I'm interested in Freemasonry, and I would like to join, and then they will help you out. All right, what are we discussing?
Sorry, there was a question here. Do any of you have our HGA?
Haute Goddess Academy.
Yeah.
That is the Northern Masonic jurisdiction's version of Master Craftsman.
Okay.
It's run a little differently. It's very limited in the number of students that they take. They do 50 students per 6-month period, and it's much different. Whereas ours is very self-paced, and theirs is a little more rigid in structure, but very finite. But it's wonderful. Not taking anything. There's no criticism at all. It's just they do it one way, we do it another. Let's see.
Thank you to Richard Glass, who said he's probably watched 400 of these videos.
Man,
he's
I
watched
appreciate
80
it.
to 90% of these videos.
I don't have to get a job, man. Thank you. Here's Harry, Brother Harry asks, should I do the chairs in the Blue Lodge first before I join the Scottish Rite? That's entirely up to the length of your cable toe, as they say. There's a lot of value in each of the chairs, the leadership lessons that come along with the Blue Lodge. There's also a lot of value in joining the Scottish Rite. So do what is within the length of your cable toe. Be very mindful of Masonic burnout. Obviously, as a Scottish Rite Mason involved in membership, we want you to join. We think we have some things that are going to be interesting and engaging to you. I tend to think those things work hand in glove, but if you got a bunch of young kids at home and you can only manage one meeting a night, it's do what you can do. Brother Chris has very young children, so sometimes it's tough for him to get to a meeting. I got kids. It's tough for me to do things sometimes. We've sort of made a job of it, so we can go, honey, I've got to go do this. It's for work. But not everybody is that fortunate. So do what you can do, and do what interests you and keeps you engaged. You're the master of your own journey, so to speak. And agree, disagree?
Yep.
All right, listen. Will it be more satisfactory for me to do the York Rite before the Scottish Rite? Same answer. Really.
Yeah, we can't.
Now, I will tell you.
Depends on the state. Depends on where you are.
I am a York Rite Mason. You a York Rite Mason? And I know you are. You're
Heavily.
Yes. You're very engaged in York Rite. I'm a York Rite Mason, but I haven't been very engaged, and I feel guilty about it. But
Shout out to all the commanders and the high priests as a sitting commander and sitting high priest this year. It's been tough.
Yeah. Master Mason Scottish Rite in California. Good shout out. I have a tendency to watch videos before bed. Well, thank you, brother. Sherry Yancey, who watches regularly. Thank you so much. Reading a Masonic French book. Good for you, man. I can barely handle English some days. Guthrie College
Just
and Consistory.
some days.
Ooh,
Interesting.
college and consistory. That's intense.
That is a great educational
Guthrie.
program.
What something big happened in Guthrie a couple of days ago.
Yeah.
Here's the reunion.
Yeah, reunion with 400 people at it or something like that.
Dude, it's a pilgrimage.
You
Membership
want to talk a
should,
little bit more about that, Dan? The Guthrie reunion?
Sure. Yeah. So the Valley of Guthrie, Oklahoma. For those of you that know, you know. But if you don't know, it is probably one of the most popular valleys to go receive or view all 29 degrees of the Scottish Rite. It's not the only valley in the southern jurisdiction that does all 29 degrees. It's not the only valley with an impressive building, but it is one of those buildings that's so well known. It more or less is a pilgrimage for Scottish Rite Masons because of what the interaction you receive from the people you meet, from well-respected Scottish Rite scholars and of all backgrounds, and it's theatrical, the props, the costumes. I've only ever seen all 29 in Guthrie, Oklahoma, but if you ever get the chance, for anyone listening, and if you're a Scottish Rite Mason or want to join Scottish Rite, I can only recommend Guthrie, Oklahoma so much, which is nothing to say against any other valley, but it really is a pilgrimage just because of how well established everything is out there in Guthrie.
And you're right, and it's been that way for decades.
They have a secret formula.
Yeah, they really do. And here's a question that I'm going to answer, and Daniel is with me, and he can answer it as well, and I think Chris could probably touch on this, but what is the significance of the number 33? Okay,
There's a book like 33.
so here, and this is
33 slices of peanut.
right. This is the absolute truth. Okay, when the Supreme Council formed, they came up with a system that had this. Basically, if you went from the first degree to the end, it was 32 degrees, and only I think 25 of them by name.
There were 25.
Yeah, by name, and there were some others that were hooked in there. Remember, they are not a hierarchy. So like the 5th degree Masons can't boss around the 3rd degree Masons. That's not what it is. And so they had 32. And then the guys who were the bosses, who were the members of the Supreme Council, they made themselves 33 just so they could kind of have one more. And I think it was purely happenstance. No different than the alphabet having 26 letters. 25 wasn't enough to what we wanted to do. 27 was too many, so that 26 is the sweet spot. I think 33, we came at that for that reason. Then later on, when the degrees were restructured and things, and Grand Commander Albert Pike rewrote some things, some symbolism was later applied, but it's none of the crazy stuff that you would read about, like, you know, the vertebrae or the freezing temperature of water. I mean, that's not.
Yeah, even Brother Brent Morris, Grand Cross, he wrote a book, Why 33. It's some combination of some of the short talks, and one of the last sections in that book is why are there 33 degrees, and everything that Brother Maynard just mentioned, but he also mentioned the low-hanging fruit in the sense of Jesus was 33, the amount of miracles, and they also mentioned that in Charleston, South Carolina, lies roughly on the 33rd parallel. And he said that could be a reason, but in
He doesn't say that that's the actual reason. He is just providing.
Right, he mentioned that as a net example that people cite. He does not say it's because of this reason, but you can draw meaning from a lot of things where it's not really there, and I think that people look at 33 and want to assign that special significance, but I just don't think it's there.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, when you think about the history of the degrees, the 33rd degree or Scottish Rite Freemasonry, up until I want to say about 1870, 1880, had like 1,000 people in it. There were an overwhelming amount of York Rite. Scottish Rite really wasn't a thing like it is now because of the system of work, and it grew in popularity over time, especially in the turn of the 20th century. So it's not like it was this thing that always existed and it was in Anderson's constitutions, this original document. It's not, you know, it's just another social fraternal group.
Quick answer. Is there a lot of memory work in the Scottish Rite? If you get involved in conferring the degrees, if you join a degree team, and there are, 32 of them, there's memory work. But if you do not like memory work for whatever reason, then there doesn't have to be. So that's not necessarily the truth. There's a lot of good questions on here. I saw one. Our favorite Manly P. Hall book. I will tell you, I don't personally connect with Manly P. Hall. I mean, I know many people do. Good for you. Enjoy it. I don't personally connect with it very much.
Pass.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna pass.
I'm not an MPH guy. That's a real West Coast thing.
You also got to realize, Manly P. Hall wrote some of those books before he became a Mason.
He wrote most of them before he was a Mason. And his bona fides are a bit suspect in my opinion. But to anybody who reads any of his work,
I will say, what does Manly, because for Joe Martinez over in Virginia, if he's actually listening, what I will acknowledge and appreciate Manly P. Hall for doing is finding a way of concisely communicating the idea of these sort of grand topics into a way that is understandable to general people. Having all these rituals and esoteric things, it's really difficult sometimes to communicate. He found a way of communicating in a simple language to people who may not necessarily understand, and so he's helped bring people into Freemasonry. But let's not use it as stone cold research, or he's not a stone cold researcher. He's no Brent Morris, I'll tell you that.
So I think brother, I'm going to butcher this name, Kyokyo, loves the channel. He's an Algeria Shriner, a York Rite Mason, currently going through the Scottish Rite reunion in the Valley of Livingston. Congratulations and welcome. Appreciate that. We've got a lot of good questions on here.
South Korea Lodge.
Yeah, Nashville just finished up the spring reunion. Please say hello to our dear friend and brother Dan Jones, who was with us in Salt Lake last week. Man, that he's one of my heroes. Here's an interesting thing, and we can weigh in on this. I went from the 3rd degree Master Mason to the 32nd degree Master of the Royal Secret in a very long weekend. A lot of people are critical of that. Your thoughts on both of you guys? What are your thoughts on sort of the one, all the way in one day type of Mason?
The first, please.
Some people, for their lifestyle, for the things that their obligations, their commitments for life, I understand they can only dedicate a certain amount of time. Some people, alternatively, like the opportunity to take a moment, to take a break, and to ponder and to think about what they've went through. I don't think if you have an option to do the degrees in a more staggered way, I would recommend it. If you cannot, go through them and have an opportunity to go back and read through them and read them and find someone who can help you talk about them and discuss them. That's the way I'll say it.
I don't agree or disagree with one-dayers.
Right.
It is a matter of logistics.
Yes.
And that's the reason why that's kind of a talking point, because I'm personal rep in Montgomery, we do one-dayers just strictly out of logistics. Now, sure, we could probably stretch it out and do all 29, but the quality would be heavily sacrificed. Yeah, and that's just not a good strategy. Mm-hmm. And so we do the obligatory degrees. Now, if you get the opportunity to go to a valley, wherever it may be, and witness all 29 in a 3-day weekend, or however long, then Masonic travel is something that is so very beneficial.
Yes.
And I understand not everyone can just pay to go or travel wherever, but it is so beneficial. But to answer the question, it's mainly out of logistics that people do those long one-day reunions where you're a sponge drinking from a fire hydrant and you're miserable. That's what I have.
That's right.
And it's not bad. It's just what was provided.
Right. I went through the same thing, and look where we are here. We're engaging, and we found the way to engage with it.
Well, it's because we're all type A, and we're, that kind of like, we're here now, and we will gladly take over this whole thing for you. That's kind of the way, at least the three of us are wired. I will say, it doesn't matter how you get in the door. What matters is how you handle yourself and how the brothers work with you after you're in the door. My experience, I'm sort of a day and a half Mason. I got my first degree in the traditional manner, but then my second and third were a big conferral at our Grand Lodge. And so I kind of have two perspectives on it. My Scottish Rite degrees took place over the course of a month. My York Rite degrees were all basically in one day. So I kind of have seen both. Is it nicer, like Chris and Daniel both said, is it nicer to sort of spread them out? Yeah, absolutely, to take a little more time. But what matters is once you're in the door, what are you going to do then? And how is your valley, how is your lodge going to engage with you at that point? So, and I know there are brothers who say, oh, well, you're not a real Mason, you went through this. I hate that, because it's not up to the individual brother. The brother doesn't show up and say, I would like to be raised in full form. He says, I'm here, and it's up to the lodge to then provide him with it. So it's not his fault one way or another. It's, you get what you can get, and I hate that Masonic snobbery.
That also runs completely contrary to what's going on in history. If you look at old Masonic minutes and ledger books, almost all the time, Masons were initiated probably within a month or two. They were often, very rarely following a 3-month cycle or a year or 6 months. They were like, first week initiated, then just either a month or maybe a couple weeks initiated, and then maybe a couple, in my lodge back in DC, some of those guys did it like Friday, Saturday, and then they waited and they did Monday, Tuesday.
Yep.
So, and that's for 100+ years. To make this claim that we have to wait, some jurisdictions, by the way, do that. Like, they actually, like, you wait a year for a degree. And in some jurisdictions for Scottish Rite, you do 1 degree a year. And so it's tough to even get to a 32nd degree. You go to, I visited one, and the lodge was like, how can you be a 32nd degree? You're only, 30, back then, it was like 34 years old. How can you be a 32nd degree Mason? But, it just depends.
Very quickly, we're all going to answer this question together on the count of 3, and I want every Mason that's on this right now to, and it's only going to take you a split second to type the answer, but I just saw the question and I answered a lot on this channel, and it drives me absolutely crazy, and on the count of 3, we will all answer it with a single word, and I want you Masons to type the single word. We're all going to do it all at once without conferring right now, okay? On the count of 3, I'll ask the question, then count to 3. When you become a Mason, do you have to renounce your holy book? 1, 2, 3. No, you don't. If you're a Christian, you stay a Christian. Masonry is not a religion, it's a fraternity. In the Scottish Rite, we look at other religions, and we don't, not for worship, just for study, as you would in a comparative religion class in college. And the reason is that one of the things that really divides men is religion. And when you look at various faiths over time throughout history, you'll see there are very common elements and very common threads. And some of the things that we don't agree on are sort of syntax. And when you can look at those things objectively and you say, we're not really that different, it makes peace between men much easier. And so I know there are people who say, well, how can you associate with these people that are not Christian? And my answer to you is, where do you buy groceries? And where do you get coffee? And where do you work that you only work with people who believe exactly the same thing that you do? People make a much bigger deal of this than it is. We don't go in lodge and worship. We go in lodge and we pay bills, we hang out, we do what we're doing right now. We don't go in there and we'll say very generic prayer at the beginning and the end, and then we say grace before dinner, and it's real generic. And if you choose to quietly pray some other way, knock yourself out. Nobody in the lodge is going to say anything to you. It's your way of doing things. You do not renounce your holy book. I am a Christian. I was a Christian before I was a Mason. I'm a better Christian now. I know Chris is. I believe Daniel is, right? And that's just demographics. But I have brothers who are Jewish. I know a few Muslim brothers. I got one brother who's he's a Hindu, and it's so.
You actually made a video on the Bible. The Masonic Bible had the symbolisms in it, didn't you?
Yes, and thank my brothers. Look at how many no's we've got typed in there without. So one guy actually wrote absolutely not. So thank you for that, brothers. I appreciate it. Masons are enemies of intolerance, tyranny, and ignorance. Yes. We are social morality. I hope so. I think we are. And I do have an announcement to make. We have an announcement to make. We crossed 36,000. We hit it. So thank you guys for allowing us to do that. It's a big deal.
Show proof.
It'll be backwards, but there you go. 36,000 subscribers. Again, it's backwards. Let's talk about the light bearer. We could get into that whole thing. And I do a whole presentation on this. The people who make the big deal about Lucifer being the light bearer, you didn't actually read that anywhere, okay? You have to go to the actual book and read it. Don't Google it, because Google has incorrect quotes, because people who are trolls put things up there that are incorrect. I challenge you to go to a library and find the right thing and then come back and ask the question. Okay, how about that?
To that point, I remember years ago, I was sitting in I forgot if it was on History Channel or what, but it was Brother Brent Morris speaking on it. And he said exactly what you just said and explained what the word means and why it's so confused. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much quote, he said, anyone else who says otherwise has, quote, an abysmal ignorance of Latin.
Ooh,
Excellent.
I love it.
It's very, very
That
Brother
hurt me.
Brent Morris.
Yeah, Brent has a way about him. He's one of my favorite guys. So, I'm very interested in, I don't even know, Enki, Enki, anybody, you guys, anybody? No, well,
What was it, ENKI?
Yeah, good luck with your interest in that. We don't know what that is. We're all pretty learned brothers. So, all right, well, we've babbled for almost 50 minutes now, and I was trying to cross that finish line. But really, this is all just to say thank you to you, brothers. Thank you to people who are supportive of us, like Brother Daniel. Thank you to Chris, who has been here with us since the get-go, and I always credit him with being one of the brains behind the operation. So, thank you guys so much for being on this journey with us, because one, it's a lot of fun, but two, every time somebody asks us a question we can't answer, we then get to go find the answer. And so that's kind of what the mantle that we have taken on. And the journey through Masonry has been very rewarding. Last week I had some family stuff going on that was challenging, and the brothers that showed up for me, it was extraordinary and overwhelming to my entire family, the support we got. Brother Daniel and I don't really even remember how we met.
VMAP.
Was that what it was?
We interacted through VMAP online. That's the only way.
Wow.
VMAP is sort of a valley improvement program, and and Daniel was involved with that. But we kind of became friends, and then last year we both got our 33rd degree together, and that was really special. It's like, because we've got this friendship and this bond, and we live thousands of miles or hundreds of miles apart anyway. But yet we're buddies, and that's like one of the coolest things about Scottish Rite and about Masonry. And Chris and I, we didn't know each other, and we came together in this common thing, and it's just so rewarding, and I'm so grateful to these guys and to all you guys for watching. So thank you. So final words, Brother Chris, before we go.
Congratulations on 36. We look forward to 39, 40, perhaps 50. I don't know what we're doing 50. I'm hoping that we can just
we
the
get
Grand
to-
Commander do a TikTok.
We get to 100K. We get to 100K. We're gonna go to Hawaii. We're gonna do live shot from the Grand Lodge of Hawaii. That's happening.
So Art De Hoyos right now is in.
I know he is. And he keeps saying, well, I wish I was in Kansas City. Listen, Kansas City is wonderful, but you're lying, Art. I love you, brother, but you're fibbing. So, Brother Daniel?
100,000.
Yeah, 100,000. We can do it. I think we can do it.
Okay.
So I don't really have anything to add. It's been fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing the great things that you and Brother Chris can put together for the rest of the Supreme Council, and it's going to be cool.
I want to say thank you to several people. First and foremost, Brother Chris here, who's been on this side by side with me for quite some time. Brother Art De Hoyos, who jumps in all the time. Brother Matt Bowers, who handles so much of the podcast and heavy lifting on that kind of production. Obviously, all the staff at the House of the Temple, but most especially Brother Stan Dodd, who recently retired and has always been behind us. Brother Bob Weatherford, who is in a video that you should check out. Brother Dean Albin, who's just crazy enough to be the guy to bring me aboard, and has every time we start coming up with some crazy thing that could get us all in trouble, he kind of throws himself in front of the train to make sure that we're taken care of. So, Brother Dean, thank you so much. And our Supreme Council, who's been so supportive, and most importantly of all, our Grand Commander, who allows us the freedom to be creative and to do this and have fun with it, and to be on the channel and be so supportive of all the things that we do. It's a wonderful and nurturing environment, and it's because of that leadership from the Grand Commander, the Supreme Council, from Brother Dean, from Art De Hoyos, that we are able to do these things. So, we get to be the faces of this stuff, but without those guys, we wouldn't be able to do any of it. So, thank them, and thank you guys especially for watching. So, thank you for joining our live show. Oh, that was you.
That was me. I'm trying to go through the chat here.
Yeah. If we missed your question, please go ahead and email it to us. You can just email membership@scottishrite.org and say, send us to Maynard and Chris, and we'll get to it. So, Daniel, thank you for everything, bro. Appreciate it.
Like Chris.
Congratulations. This has been a lot of fun.
Congratulations.
And
Yes.
we will see you guys in a little while. And maybe we'll do this again while we're in Jacksonville, Florida.
Yeah.
Although in Jacksonville, Florida, we have to leave town really quickly because Luke Combs, the country singer, has taken over our hotel.
Friday night.
Yeah, it's crazy.
He's on like a separate, you're in a different hotel.
Yeah, I have to be in a different hotel from everybody else because Luke Combs' entire entourage is like kicking us out. See, I thought we were the Freemasons. Are we supposed to run the world? That's what I signed up for, and Luke Combs is kicking me out.
You know, why'd you get, I mean, what are the benefits for the 33rd degree?
Right?
Cash flow.
I don't even get the fast car. I don't even get the fast car that he gets. So that was all a joke, by the way. for the
This was all a joke. Is life a joke?
Goodbye.
Yeah.